Hi gang, I'm your instructor Brad Durson, and tonight we'll be joined by four narrators, Will, Anna, Heather, and Tracy, and we'll be talking about the demand for resources. The demand for resources, mainly labor, is concentrated on in this chapter. Resource prices and their implications on money, income, cost minimization, resource allocation, and policies are examined.
Thank you, Brad. You look awesome today. 2. Significance of resource pricing. Studying resource pricing aids in the understanding of economic activity in several ways. Resource prices are a major factor in determining the income of households. To firms, resource prices represent costs. To make the most money, firms must produce at the profit-maximizing output with the least costly combination of resources. Resource prices help in the allocation of resources among the various industries and firms that need them. And finally, many policy issues like CEO pay, labor unions, and minimum wage increases are based on resource pricing. While the focus in this chapter is on the labor resource, the principles apply just as well to the other economic resources, land, capital, and entrepreneurial ability.
Thanks, Tracy. I love your voice. 3. Marginal productivity theory of resource demand. To keep the example simple, assume that resources are bought and sold in perfectly competitive markets and that the products produced by the resources are also bought and sold in perfectly competitive markets. Note that there is a derived demand for resources since we do not consume resources directly but indirectly through the consumption of the goods and services produced with the resources. The strength of the demand depends on the productivity of that resource in helping to create a good or service and the market value or price of the good or service it helps produce.
Well, you sound like a Martian. 4. Marginal theory of resource demand. The marginal revenue product represents the change in total revenue resulting from the use of each additional unit of a resource.
Anna. Stop picking on Will. 5. Marginal resource cost is equal to the amount that each additional unit of a resource adds to a firm's total cost.
This is Tracy. 6. Marginal product theory of resource demand. A firm will maximize profits at the point at which marginal revenue product equals marginal resource cost.
Hi Tracy. What are you doing tonight? 7. Marginal revenue product as resource demand. This schedule demonstrates the demand for labor under a purely competitive environment. The MRP curve is the resource demand curve. Each of its points relates a particular resource price with a corresponding quantity of the resource demanded. Under pure competition, product price is constant. Therefore, the downward slope of the D equals MRP curve is due solely to the decline in the resource's marginal product.
Well, quit hitting on Tracy. 8. Marginal revenue product. Under imperfect product markup competition, the resource demand curve, the solid line in the graph, slopes downward because both marginal product and product price fall as output rises. The downward slope is greater than that for a purely competitive seller, the dashed line, because the pure competitor can sell the added output at a constant price.
Be quiet, Anna. Your mother was Microsoft. 9. Determinants of resource demand. Other things equal, an increase in the demand for a product will increase the demand for a resource used in its production. Changes in productivity can be brought about by changes in quantities of other resources, technological advances, or the quality of the variable resources.
Thoughts okay, Anna? I am a big girl. 10. Determinants of resource demand. Changes in the prices of substitute resources may affect the demand for a specific resource. The substitution effect tells us that a firm will purchase more of an input whose relative price has declined and, conversely, use less of an input whose relative price has increased. The output effect indicates that the firm will purchase more of one particular input when the price of the other input falls and less of that particular input when the price of the other input rises. Netting the two together will determine the final total change. With complementary resources, the changes in demand for each resource will be directly related, meaning they will rise and fall together.
Okay, ladies. Let's stop the crosstalk. Brad's students want to learn. 11. Substitute and complement resources. This table provides a summary of how an increase in the price of capital will affect the demand for labor depending on whether they are substitutes or complements in production.
Okay, well. 12. Determinants of resource demand. This table provides a summary of the determinants that impact resource demand and how resource demand shifts when the determinants change.
Okay, time for break, guys. There is rising unemployment in healthcare services due to the rising demand for healthcare. Use of insurance has allowed people to buy more healthcare than they could have without it. Declining employment in shoe manufacturing at the U.S. Postal Service is occurring because of imports and due to labor-saving technological change.
I am still the prettiest though. 14. Fasting growing occupations. This table lists the 10 fastest growing U.S. occupations for the years 2010 through 2020 as projected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You may notice that service occupations dominate the list.
Says your blind daddy. 15. Fastest declining occupations. This table lists the 10 most rapidly declining U.S. occupation for the years 2010 through 2020 as projected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The list is composed of occupations affected by imports or instances of labor being replaced with automated or computerized equipment.
Enough already. 16. Elasticity of resource demand. A change in the demand of a resource must be distinguished from a change in the quantity demanded of a resource. The sensitivity of resource quantity to changes in resource prices along a fixed resource demand curve is measured in the elasticity of resource demand, which is measured as the percentage change in the resource quantity divided by the percentage change in the resource price. Several factors determine the elasticity of resource demand. The ease of the resource substitutability is one. The greater the substitutability of other resources, the more elastic the demand will be for a particular resource. Since the demand for labor is a derived demand, the elasticity of the demand for the output product will also influence the elasticity of the demand of labor. And finally, the ratio of the resource cost to total cost is also a factor. The larger the proportion of total production costs accounted for by a resource, the greater the elasticity of demand will be for that resource.
Boo-hoo. Be a big boy, Will. 17. Optimal combination of resources. In the long run, all resource inputs are variable, and so one must consider what combinations of resources a firm should choose when all its inputs are variable. A firm will produce a specific output with the least cost combination of resources in order to maximize profit.
Yup, Will. Don't be such a wimp. 18. Least cost rule. The least cost rule states that a firm will seek to minimize the cost of producing a given output in order to maximize profits. A producer's least cost rule is analogous to the consumer's utility maximizing rule described in Chapter 7. In achieving the cost-minimizing combination of resources, the producer considers both the marginal product data and the prices, costs, of the various resources.
Neener, neener, neener. Will's is a wiener. 19. Profit maximizing rule. Just minimizing costs is not enough for maximizing profit. There is only one unique level of output that will maximize profit. Profit maximization occurs where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. A firm will achieve its profit maximizing combination of resources when each resource is employed to the point at which its marginal revenue product equals its resource price.
Wow. You girls are harsh. 20. Numerical example. In columns 2, 3, 2 single quote, and 3 single quote in this table, the total product and marginal product for various amounts of labor and capital are displayed. MRP is found in columns 5 and 5 single quote. Labor and capital are assumed to be the only inputs needed in producing the product, and both inputs are subject to diminishing returns. The profit maximizing combination of 5 units of labor and 3 units of capital is also a least cost combination for this particular level of output.
Time is almost over. We had better get serious. 21. Income is distributed according to how the resource has contributed or has been applied in creating society's output. Income payments based on marginal revenue product provide a fair and equitable distribution of society's income. It is not a perfect system, however, as it can result in a highly unequal distribution. This may be because production resources were unequally distributed in the first place. Market imperfections can also result in unequal distributions. In some labor markets, employers are able to exert their wage-setting power to pay less than competitive wages.
Hooray! This is our last slide. 22. Input substitution. The case of ATM. The proliferation of ATMs illustrates the input substitution effect. Banks are using more automatic teller machines and employing fewer human tellers. While the loss of the teller jobs may hurt some workers, the cost savings to the banks and the increased customer convenience means that society as a whole comes out ahead. Society obtains more convenient banking along with the increased output the freed up labor resources can help produce.